A podcast. What is the word?
A podcast by Kalugo.
A podcast. No. By Kalugo.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Christy, your host of Today We Tried, a parenting podcast from Kalugo. This season, we're sharing tales from the fourth trimester, those 12 wild, hard, and wonderful weeks after a new baby arrives. Before jumping in, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for listening. The feedback I've received on the season has been such a blessing, and I'm so thankful for you. I hope this podcast has helped you to feel more confident and connected. This week, I'm chatting with the amazing Brooke Cates, founder of the Bloom Method, an overall wonderful person. You will hear her energy in our conversation, which is all about tapping into your intuition and healing your body postpartum. As we all know, postpartum lasts way more than 12 weeks, and Brooke's insights will resonate no matter where you are in your parenting journey. We also talk about filling your own cup, which is a really good thing to keep in mind as the holidays approach, and feeling confident in moving and parenting in ways that feel right. You know more than you think, and this conversation will help you to trust that. You'll also hear our very different views on massage, so let me know if you're on my anti-massage team or if you side with Brooke. Anyway, let's jump in. Christy here with Brooke Cates, and so excited to chat with her today. She is CEO and founder of the Bloom Method, a prenatal and postnatal exercise specialist, core rehabilitation specialist, and prenatal and postnatal holistic health coach. And I'm so excited to have you here today, Brooke, to talk more about healing our bodies postpartum and the power of that. So would love to start out just hearing what inspired you to start the Bloom Method.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Christy, for having me. It feels so great to come full circle and being in this conversation where I can talk about my passion and love for this work, because as you know, I used your carrier during my early postpartum. So it just feels so good to be having this conversation with you. So thanks for having me. With Bloom, let's see. So unlike a lot of women who are in the pre and postnatal space, I did not find this work through becoming a mother myself or through being pregnant. I actually found this work because I believe it's truly my work. And there's really nothing else I can say to that, because I found this work. I've been doing this work for almost 10 years. And it was really founded on this random spark that came within me. And instead of questioning why this was coming online for me, 7, 8, 9 years before I would want to explore having my own children, I just leaned into it. It really stemmed off of a culmination of, I would say, disempowering narratives that pregnant and postpartum women, mothers in general, seem to be exposed to, that not just disempowered them, but really ripped away this essence of what I felt women should be embodying during pregnancy, postpartum, and especially as they really leaped into motherhood. It's the most profound time in our lives. And I felt that all around us, we were being told, we as women, you can't move your body this way, or you have to be scared of birth because it's painful, or, you can't eat these foods. And there were all these narratives. And I think I saw the declining energy, for a lack of better words, of friends and other women in my life who were going through this journey, and how these narratives affected them and almost like dimmed their light when their light should be shining brighter than ever. And I think it brought online this question of, holy cow, is this the way it's going to be when I decide to have a baby? And I've always been into movement, and I've always been an athlete my whole life. It brought online this, I don't want to feel broken. And I know that we don't have to feel broken and feel defeated. And we can actually celebrate the changes that our bodies go through from a movement perspective. So it started with that. And then, of course, it has evolved and shifted over the past 9, 10 years. When I first came on the scene doing this work, there was not much. I mean, right now, talking to you, you know, women can follow their favorite influencer who has a pre and postnatal program. There are tons of so-called methods and programs. That was not the case. It was extreme crickets and very old school thinking when I first started talking about this. And it has been quite a beautiful ride for the past 9-10 years, especially seeing how far we've come. So that's really how I got into it. I saw a problem. I wanted to solve it. And it really comes back to the foundation of wanting to empower women because we deserve more.
You know, that is such a profound spark. And I love that you leaned into that and recognized that. I remember when I was pregnant with the twins, my first pregnancy classified it as high risk because it was twins, but otherwise everything was good. But I felt going to every doctor's appointment like I was being treated like I was sick or there was a problem. Every time I would go in, they were like looking for something to be wrong instead of, I guess it's all in how you frame it. Cause like you could frame pregnancy and this whole time, as you said, as something beautiful and empowering. And I really remember sitting in these doctor's appointments being just like, feeling like I was sick, like they were trying to cure me or like diagnose me with a problem instead of being like, oh, this is a beautiful natural thing that is happening and we're going to like guide you along your path. And you actually, your body knows what it's doing. You actually can feel really empowered in this moment. But I just felt that kind of like being taken away from me with every appointment, especially in my first pregnancy.
And how powerful do you feel that it would have been to not have that narrative? Like that narrative right there is so potent because it is what so many women hear and they're told. And what I say to women is ask yourself, as soon as we get pregnant, I feel like that motherhood intuition, that mama bear intuition comes online. So it's ask yourself, what is high risk about something that naturally happened? You got pregnant. And a lot of women would say, well, I got pregnant with multiples through IVF, but you still got pregnant. The world around us would not allow it to happen if it's just going to put you into this really challenging high risk bubble. It's like I had my little boy right before my 38th birthday. I had a home birth, so I was working with midwives. So I was lucky enough to not hear a lot of that language around this is a geriatric pregnancy, right? Because over 35, you're told you're having a geriatric pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And I think that really helped me. So again, it's starting to reframe so much of what we've been told around pregnancy and postpartum. And I think empowering the individual to go inward. This is a little bit deeper than movement, but ask yourself, do I feel, like you said, do I feel high risk? I don't feel high risk. Sure, I'll lean on my doctors and listen to what they may tell me, but I feel great. And that's exactly what you should have been told, is that you are a healthy, vibrant woman who is super stoked about these babies. Let's keep you on that path. And I think if we could just change the way that we talk about pregnancy, postpartum. And oftentimes I think our doctors put their fear of liability on the individual, on the moms. Sometimes I wish they would keep that to themselves. It's almost like unsolicited advice for pregnant and postpartum women, right? Like you're the doctor, hold the space, keep it to yourself. You can think I'm high risk, but why do you need to tell me? Unless we get to a point where I need to be told, hey, this needs to happen.
Right. No. And that's, I think there can be, and maybe it's also just finding these other, like, yes, if you're in a medical environment, like things are going to look and sound and be medical, right? But where are the other spaces where you can find the other communities where you're able to feel like empowered and this is exciting. And I think the other piece of this is, well, and I should say that like the fear of liability was definitely in play with my twin pregnancy because both of my twins were always head down, like everything was fine. And I wanted to have a vaginal delivery. And in every single appointment, all they wanted me to do was sign the waiver to agree to a C-section because they were like, you're a twin pregnancy. We should just do a C-section. Like that was the conversation in every appointment. And so that was why I felt like I was being a problem or like there was a problem. But I ended up being able to deliver vaginally, like it was fine. And it would have been, if there was a contraindication, like fine. But that was kind of our back and forth in every appointment was they were like, just sign up for a C-section and, stop being a problem.
It's as if my desire to empower women through movement and fitness in the pregnancy and postpartum space, it's as if it actually stems from the lack of empowerment that starts in the beginning of, I just found out I'm pregnant, right? I mean, so many women, and I don't want to put it on just our medical teams and our doctors. That is absolutely not what this is about, because what you just said a minute ago is that the liability thing is real, but can we have other sources that we go to? What about our community of friends? How often are women sharing that, well, I mean, 10 of my friends said that birth was the most horrible thing ever, and that if they did it again, they would get 2 epidurals and they would take all the drugs in the world. Where are the empowering stories? Where are the women who can boldly say, yeah, birth was messy and it was the most incredible, transformative thing ever? Pause. I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with someone saying, I hated my birth. There is space for all of it. But I believe that all the stories need to be told. And oftentimes it's the fear mongering that is talked about. So
Yeah. And I think so many birth stories, like I feel like for mine, they're like often are both. Like there's things that are super empowering about them, and then things that were like maybe not my favorite. And I think it can be easier to share the harder things. And maybe it can feel like if you're talking about your birth in like a really empowering way, you're just not used to hearing those stories. And so I feel like it's like the way it's hard to kind of compliment yourself. And if you felt really powerful in that birth, like women are taught to kind of like dim that part too. And so we only hear kind of the negative sides of things. And I think there's also just not a lot of space to tell the whole story, and women are often told, well, and I think this goes back to the way that you should think about or feeling in your body and feeling powerful in your body during pregnancy, during postpartum. But we're often told like, oh, well, as if you had a healthy baby, like that's the end of the story. And you shouldn't be like thinking about yourself and your own experience there. And I think healing postpartum is a thing that women are not supposed to like focus on, right? You're supposed to just focus on the baby. And so I want to talk about how, for me, and I'm sure this is your experience and also the experience of all the women you are helping through the Bloom Method, how powerful it can be to focus back in on yourself. If from the moment you get that positive pregnancy test, it's just all about the baby, how can we focus back in on ourselves and feel powerful and like feel connected to ourselves and our own body through movement?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. I would say that it is such an individual journey, because I agree with you. I think that we are fed this narrative of, you're now a mom, you chose to be a mom, so put yourself on the back burner and everyone else comes before you. And I am actually super anti that concept. And I am all about moms deserve self-care, and moms deserve to make the time for themselves to have the self-care. And self-care is such a broad spectrum. It is so individual. But when we can take the time to give ourselves back what we need in that season, moment to moment, it's going to be different. We show up better in our lives for everyone else. So it's not about shine a little bit of light on what I need as a mom, and I'm not going to give attention and care and love to my family or my business or whatever it is. It's actually fill my cup so that I can show up better and love more and be more patient with my children and not snap at my partner because they didn't do what I thought that they were going to do for me, et cetera, et cetera. And so getting to that, when I mentioned it's an individual journey, getting to that for everyone is so different, because we've all been, for a lack of better words, indoctrinated around this narrative differently. So for some women like myself, it's really easy to say self-care is a non-negotiable. I do this, this, and this every single week to make myself shine brighter in the world. And for other women, there's more guilt that could be attached to that. So sometimes it's about just starting small, right? It's starting small so that you can really see how powerful the effects are of giving self-care back to yourself. And in relation to postpartum, it's along those same lines, but it's even more crucial, because how many of us at our age can look back and say, our moms wish they had the education and the resources that we have around prenatal, postpartum, motherhood, the whole shebang. How many women will tell us at Bloom, my mom will do these workouts with us or with me because she never healed. She didn't even know she had separation, but she knew her core never felt the same. She knew she peed her pants, but no one talked about it. So she just peed her pants after baby.
Well, or people act like that's just like, oh yeah, that's the way it is. Haha, when you're a mom, you like, and it just becomes normalized in that way. And it's like, no, like it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it becomes normalized. And I love drawing these correlations so women really understand the power. Not only does it become normalized, but we accept it as normal because it fits the continuous disempowering narrative that we're used to. So this is nothing different. If anything, I sound like the wacko because I'm trying to tell you, no, let's redefine the narratives and step back in our power as women so that we can mother better. We can run our businesses better, be better friends, better partners, whatever it looks like. So, the postpartum thing is tricky because on many levels, but one thing we're big about, and I'm really big about, but with all of my coaches at Bloom, is that we try to get women to stop waiting until they're quote unquote cleared by their OBGYN to begin getting back in touch with their core and pelvic floor, to reinstating some level of functional movement that you're already doing throughout your day as a human, of course, as a mother too, but even just as a human, you move in certain ways. And it's about turning all of this back online before you ever get that really blanketed statement from your OBGYN of, sure, you can go back to exercise. Everything checks out, which I want to clarify to anyone listening. All that means, whether your doula, your midwife, your OBGYN gave you that clearance, it just means you are no longer a liability for me, so I can clear you. And it is such a detriment to individuals who have just carried a baby, birthed that baby, whether through their belly or their vagina, and then now need to rehab their body, reconnect with their body so that they don't go back to exercise. And then 6 months plus, we've had women 4 years later go, all of a sudden I'm peeing my pants, or all of a sudden I have prolapse. Well, did you ever spend time rehabbing your core and pelvic floor in those early days? Well, no one told me. I just waited. I rested, right? Because we're all told to rest. I will get to that in a minute because rest is crucial, but it's about a balance. We're all told to rest. We go to our doctor. We've been doing nothing. We literally carried a baby. Our body changed drastically for 8 to 9 months. I always say everybody gives birth at a different time. We birth that baby, have a plate-sized wound in our abdomen that heals, our vagina starts to heal, and then we go back to the doctor and the doctor goes, sure, you can go back to exercise with no guidance. So what I want to stress is that if you were doing CrossFit or if you were doing Orange Theory, boxing, bar, whatever you were doing pre-pregnancy, the average woman hears, oh, I can just go back to that class. She goes online, she signs up for that class, and she goes. When we need to honor our bodies more, we need to realize that if we want to be stronger in exercise and in moving every day with our children than we ever were pre-pregnancy, then we have to lay that foundation to be stronger, to omit injury, and to properly heal, because we don't have to be broken. This idea that, oh, well, I had a baby and I had to give up my body to have these babies. I had to give up running. Who says? Do you say that? Because if you say that and that feels good in your body, awesome. Don't ever run again. But if that doesn't feel good and you feel like you're just subscribing to something you were told to believe, then there's some area of investigation that needs to happen. So we are really big on gentle, smart, progressive rehab in those first 6 weeks, and I'm not saying that you can just follow any rehab program. It needs to be, in my opinion, a rehab program that takes into consideration that anyone doing that program could have had a vaginal birth with twins, could have torn to a fourth degree or a first degree, could have had a cesarean birth. So it is a program that is saying you can start as early as your first week postpartum. Those first few weeks are so gentle and progressive that they help catapult you to where you need to be, but they're not going to injure you. It's going to be that gentle.
Having that idea of bringing things, like bringing these muscles back online, like reconnecting. I know that with the Blue method, you focus on like breathing and diaphragmatic breathing and just kind of feeling your body, like reconnecting is just a really powerful thing. And it takes some time. And if you're listening to this and you just had your first baby, like I really remember after my first birth, your stomach suddenly you had a baby in there, like kicking around. I had 2 babies in there, like kicking around. And then the absence of them in my belly just felt like so profound. And I felt it was like, is this part of my body anymore? Like it was very hard to kind of find the way back to connection and be using a method that understands that and kind of that movement and how to progress very slowly. It's like physical and mental healing at the same time, this kind of like reconnection, which I think is really powerful. And I also want to add to what you had been saying about like when you're filling your own cup and then you can show up better for all the other people in your life, you also can enjoy your own like as a person in those moments. Like you'll also enjoy it so much more. Like as you're healing and not feeling broken, the best thing is I love when I'm like with my kids running around and I like don't feel my body hurting. You kind of notice all of a sudden like, oh, my body doesn't hurt right now, especially if it has been. And you're like, wow, I can just like be present right now instead of thinking about my body, which is like a really powerful gift you can give yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that's really powerful because you can feel that and start to experience it in that early postpartum. This idea of women laying in bed and not moving their body for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, you guys. You would have an ACL surgery and no one would tell you to lay in bed after a serious surgery like that for 6 weeks without any type of PT, right? So the idea of that is silly. And the more children you have, you know this, the more ridiculous and insane that sounds. Like,
right.
Here's the narrative, you guys. You're a mom. Don't give yourself any self-care because you have to give all of your attention and love and energy to your family. But when you have a baby, you have to lay in that bed. I mean, excuse my language, but if that does not fuck up your mind, you're like, wait, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be the whole caregiver for my family and just lay in bed. So yes, I think that it's about, when I talk about rehab, it's about our newest rehab is so progressive and I am so pumped about it because right now it's pretty common for women to just want to rehab their core and pelvic floor. And when we redid our rehab for the app, we said, how can this be bigger? How can this set women up to, if they don't want to use our app at 6 weeks postpartum anymore, and they get cleared by their doctor, and this is just an analogy, but they love HIIT workouts and they want to go back to HIIT at 6 weeks. Am I agreeing with that? No. But when you have an online app, I cannot hold people's hands like I could for years of being their personal trainer. Now I have to really just try to inspire them to do what they should do. Should is what would be best for them. I should say that. If they do choose to go back to that HIIT class at 6 or 8 weeks postpartum, we feel that we have built such a progressive rehab where we have literally taught them and given them the best foundation that they're going to get. And that goes beyond just the core and pelvic floor, that they're actually going to be less likely to injure themselves, even if they started doing jump squats at 6 weeks postpartum, had they have done our 6-week rehab, because we're doing everything from body weight, single leg deadlifts, with breath work. So we're always bringing on that core and pelvic floor. The core and pelvic floor at Bloom, they are part of everything we do, because the other thing is moms don't have time. So I'm a firm believer in that you should not have to work out for more than 30 minutes a day. Yes, you guys heard it here. I am the founder of a fitness method. I do not, if I ever do a workout for more than 30 minutes, it's a 38-minute workout. And that was because I tacked on like 8 minutes of core at the end of it. And that's like maybe twice a week. Because if you can be efficient with intentional movement, you don't have to spend 45 minutes to an hour of your day moving your body. You can also get your workout in moving with your kids. You can go to the park and run and pick up your kids and have fun and get a workout. So I think teaching women that being progressive in your movement, understanding that you are a body that moves and that sitting and being stagnant is actually going to cause you more harm than good. Please do not misunderstand me that I am sitting here telling you not to rest. I actually sat in bed for 7 days. Of course, I got up and used the bathroom and took a shower. But for the first 7 days, I did not even go downstairs of my house. So postpartum, for 7 days, I was very gentle. But in those first 7 days, I also laid in bed and nursed my baby and turned back on my diaphragmatic breath and would play with my core and pelvic floor contractions and engage and hold and then go back into my breath. So there are things that we can do that require such minimal movement in those early weeks that should you have had a more high risk birth for some reason, because the list goes on, then you can just sit in bed and bottle feed or nurse your baby and tap back in and to your core and pelvic floor. And then when a small level of movement, and you guys, I'm talking small level, you get up out of bed to go use the bathroom. So when you sit on a toilet and you stand up, that is a squat. So technically, to do 5 to 10, what we would call at Bloom, sit to stands, where you stand at the edge of your bed, you sit down on the bed and you stand up and you incorporate core and pelvic floor co-contraction with that movement, that is safe enough to do as early as 1 week if that feels good to you. And the more that we get women on board with, like you said, bringing these things back online, the safer it actually is when their OBGYN gives them this blanket statement of, you're free to go exercise. You're going to be less likely to be injured. And that's our goal at Bloom from a postpartum space, is we want women to not feel broken. We want you to know that you actually can achieve a greater strength postpartum than you ever were pre-baby. And you don't have to be injured. This whole like peeing your pants, like severe injury-based diastasis recti, those are more narratives that are used to destroy us instead of pick us up. And we just want to pick women up and empower them.
Well, I love that idea that like we're moving anyway. Whether you're going to get out of bed to use the bathroom, you're going to go up and down the stairs. If you have other kids, you're going to pick them up. Your baby, you're going to pick them up. And so how can we be really intentional about our movements there? You're not adding another thing to women's plates during this time. It's like you're actually helping them to move in a way that is going to make them feel empowered and good and start to bring their body back online. I just think that's a really powerful image to me because of how, for me, disconnected I feel from my body in those early days postpartum, because I don't know, I remember catching a look at myself in the mirror and just kind of being like, oh, is that what my body looks like? Not even feeling really badly about it, but just feeling like, oh, I don't recognize myself at all. And so doing these small, really considered movements and breathing in a way that is making you feel connected, all of these little things can be progressive, as you said, add up to the next thing. And I also think for me, Bloom feels super empowering is the range of classes you offer from okay, so it's early healing postpartum, and then going from there, you offer more intense workouts, more yoga that is more like restorative, but you're not also just saying, okay, well, after postpartum, like all you can do are these really gentle things. You're going to help women build so they can go back to like their level of fitness or beyond from before they got pregnant. You're going to guide them along that path where it's like, okay, yeah, go like have a serious HIIT workout, get that sweat and that healing as well.
So when I was working with women one-on-one as a personal trainer many years ago, it feels like, and I started to develop the concept of this roadmap, which became the methodology. The foundation of my desire to do that was to help women continue moving their bodies the way they want to move them. There is not a single woman out there that loves to move her body in the same way as every single one of her girlfriends. It's just not the case. We all love to move our bodies in different ways, and that makes us feel good and fills us up. So with the Bloom Method, I started this work. It was back in the day where there were maybe 3 online programs, and all 3 of those pre and postnatal programs mostly were postnatal. Most of them were geared towards healing diastasis recti, and every single one of them was a one-size-fits-all program where you do this no matter where you're at, and it's going to heal your diastasis.
So can I ask a question about diastasis recti, which thank you for saying, because I like have it and still don't know how to say it correctly. Does it often kind of heal itself on its own over time, or is every woman who has any separation would need to kind of do things? I felt like my OB was always like, oh, this will just kind of like resolve. That was kind of the message I got. So would love to hear like your perspective on that.
You and every other freaking woman in the world who has had a baby. So this is actually one of my most favorite topics to talk about because it's one of my most favorite narratives to slash. So here's the deal. Diastasis recti is an incredibly outdated space, I would say, for a lack of better words. And what I mean by that are many things, but mainly we have always gone off of studies, evidence-based information when it comes to things like diastasis recti. Well, the problem is to get funding for a type of study that talks about prevention of diastasis or healing of diastasis is really tough. So a lot of the studies that we have are super outdated, and yet we have learned so much about diastasis. The way the average person, specialist, whatever, fitness professional, OBGYN, talks or thinks about diastasis recti is in terminology of diastasis recti, which means the separation of the recti muscles. Your rectus abdominis are your six-pack muscles, and those muscles separate naturally during pregnancy. They also have always been separated. Those muscles have never touched because there is a band of connective tissue that lives between those muscles, connecting essentially the 3 packs together to make 6, right? And I think that what has happened over the years is because we attached this concept of, well, abdominal separation, because the abdominal muscles, those in particular, the 6-pack muscles, separate during pregnancy. Well, everyone gets diastasis recti, and now that has led to everyone will have an injury. And that's where the issues happen. Because at Bloom, we're big on preventing injury-based diastasis. And for years, I got so much crap from other specialists being like, you cannot prevent injury-based diastasis. And I would say, or actually they would say, you cannot prevent diastasis recti. And I would say, actually you can, because what we need to be teaching women is there is a difference between what our bodies naturally do and when we implement certain ways of connecting with our core and pelvic floor through functional daily movements, as well as exercise. So anything from doing a core-based exercise during pregnancy to picking up our child and transferring them to a car seat. Those 2 things both recruit our core and our inner unit. Mm-hmm. So if we can learn to implement certain techniques, which we teach you on our app, during pregnancy, you actually can protect the integrity or strength of that connective tissue band from becoming an injury-based diastasis. So we still allow the body to naturally have this separation, but that's where the innate wisdom of the body comes in. So you mentioned with your question, does the body naturally heal this? If you don't have an injury-based level of diastasis, Yes. Think about that band of tissue, that connective tissue as a rubber band. If you are able to create or to maintain the tautness of that band through proper connection and recruitment of the core and pelvic floor throughout pregnancy as well as postpartum, then you are less likely to damage or weaken that connective tissue. And it's the damaging or the weakening of that connective tissue that gets women into this more injury-based diastasis where they're having to have tummy tucks. They feel like they've done every exercise in the book. They cannot heal their diastasis, and they're having a tummy tuck surgery to heal the diastasis for good. Or they're feeling like postpartum, I feel like I can't progress to these exercises that I want to do because I have injury-based diastasis. I actually tell women it's not, because even if you do have an injury-based diastasis, it's just the way you're recruiting your core. We have guided thousands of women who have been told, I have a very weak, that connective tissue is called the linea alba. I have a very weak linea alba. So my separation, it's not that the separation is wide. Women need to stop focusing on closing the gap and instead focus on rebuilding the tension at that midline, because it's about that tension that is going to help you progress to other exercises that you want to do or move your body in the way you want to move it, thus giving you any type of aesthetic, helping you reach any type of aesthetic goal with your core, right? Because a lot of women say, I can tell that I have diastasis because look at the way my core looks. So it's really about retraining the mind and body to connect deeper to the core and pelvic floor. And a lot of that has to do with the regulation. I'm really going to throw people off here, but the regulation of intra-abdominal pressure. Our abdomen, the pressure in our abdomen is always changing when we recruit the core. Again, it can be in a plank, a crunch, or it can be in picking up a bag of groceries or standing up out of a chair. So it's about learning how to recruit the core in a way that we're always recruiting the core to match that increase of pressure in the abdomen, because it's that increase of pressure that happens throughout pregnancy as the abs are stretched. That connective tissue is stretched out. So imagine stretching width-wise a rubber band. It's almost like you can start to see through the rubber band. And any time, if I were to poke my finger through that stretched out rubber band, over time, it's going to weaken that point of the rubber band, right? When we don't recruit our core properly, when our abs are stretched, that's what starts to weaken the core. So it all goes back to that core recruitment. All of that word vomit and education vomit to say that there is normal, healthy levels of diastasis recti. We want to have a healthy level of separation to create space for our babies to grow. What we want to do is implement certain tools and techniques to prevent injury-based separation or diastasis recti, which really is caused by either the weakness or the lack of weakness of that connective tissue. So yes, if you don't have injury-based diastasis, your body knows exactly how to regenerate that connective tissue and bring you back into alignment. Now, that doesn't mean that you can skip core and pelvic floor rehab, because that's just going to help. It's going to aid your body, right, in bringing all that back online. And if you do have injury-based diastasis, you did nothing wrong. Know that first. And it can be repaired and addressed and healed without surgery. There's always going to be a small percentage of women who have done everything they can. And surgery is okay if you choose it. The biggest thing that I see that I feel like is the biggest missing link in postpartum healing, in addressing that re-strengthening and healing of a diastasis, an injury-based diastasis, is that women are not being taught how to properly recruit the core. And when I say that, I see it all over social media, but women doing these quote unquote diastasis safe exercises, but there's no core recruitment. They're just moving their body.
All right. So tell me, what does that mean? How do we recruit our core?
That's a big one. That's a big one. Recruiting the core. So when you mentioned that we talk about breath at Bloom, And we do. It is the foundational piece. And a lot of women go, but it does not give me instant gratification. It actually does. It literally is the building blocks to the strongest core. If you want a 6-pack, if you want to be able to hold a 5-minute plank, I don't ever recommend that. That is one of the stupidest things ever. These plank challenges are so dumb. Don't even get me started. They're just not efficient, you guys. But if your goal is astronomical, your breath is still the building block, especially after carrying a baby, but really for anyone. And so it starts with that breath. So proper core recruitment, the reason I bring up the breath is because we can find it when we're learning how to diaphragmatically breathe. Because when you simply breathe, you're not even thinking of recruiting your core and pelvic floor. So when I talk about the word recruitment, I also can use verbiage like intentional engagement of the pelvic floor. So some people would refer to that as a Kegel, and then an activation or engagement of the deep core. The most common cue to engage the core is pull your belly button to spine. This is like nails on a chalkboard to me, because it doesn't truly help us recruit the core. We're trying to recruit the core with the pelvic floor from the deepest layer of the core unit, which is our transverse abdominal muscle. And that's this corset-like muscle that attaches on either side of the spine and then wraps the torso like a corset. So if we're just pulling belly button to spine, how are we getting the sides of the TVA and the backside of the TVA? So at Bloom, we talk about using the exhale component of the breath to perform kind of like a Kegel. We go into more of this on the app, but a Kegel. And then within milliseconds of that Kegel firing, you exhale and wrap, almost like if you're pregnant, we refer to it as hugging your baby from the inside out. And if you're postpartum, it's as if as you exhale, and it's a slow, intentional exhale. The slower the exhale, the longer the exhale, the deeper you get to take that recruitment of the deep core. So it's like wrapping a corset, slow and controlled, drawing everything to that midline. The beauty of all of that is if you're postpartum, simultaneously wanting to address this potential diastasis recti that could or could not be injury-based, you're drawing everything to the midline. So you're strengthening the muscles in a way that is going to immediately take tension off of that linea alba, that midline connective tissue. And then we build from that. So we have several foundational techniques. It starts with the diaphragmatic breath. It moves into the belly pump, which is also teaches women how to recruit the core and pelvic floor in that more intentional engagement. And then we go to our favorite, which is called a deep core hold, where we start to build engagement. So it's almost like if you like an isometric hold of that deep core, and you literally can do it sitting in your car. So I love it because it helps women understand how to turn the deep core on, and they're not even having to roll out a yoga mat. It gives you that sensation, that feeling. And then when we start to load the spine and recruit the core through, even if it's like the easiest core move that you've ever done in your life, or leading up to the most challenging, you're loading it, but first you're engaging it. So, one thing we hear postpartum is don't ever do a crunch again. They're really bad for diastasis. I'm going to be brazen and say, stop listening to people who tell you that. That is not true. Do you know why I think it's not true? Here's the thing. I do not believe that crunches are the most functional core exercise we have. Absolutely not. But the moment I tell a mom she cannot do a crunch, that is telling her that any group fitness class that she wants to go to and they cue a crunch, she is left there feeling disempowered. Mm-hmm. She is left there trying to figure out what to do while everyone else in the class does a crunch. And it's not okay. It's not okay. So actually, if we just empower women and educate women that you can do a crunch properly, but it's about recruiting the core before we move. So it's that exhale engagement of the pelvic floor and core. So it's almost like you're locking down that inner core unit with engagement, and then you crunch up. The issue,
I'm like trying to do it now. Okay.
I love it. No,
this is good. No, it's so helpful, but it's like, that is such a good image. And I love this. It's like, okay, no, you can do the things, You got to build to the thing. You're not taking anything off the table.
Even as a fitness specialist, I think that some of the narratives from the mainstream fitness realm have damaged us the most, right? Especially as women, especially as pre and postnatal women, because our bodies go through so much and there's all this pressure for our bodies to look a certain way by a certain time. But I think that, just to really quickly go back to the crunches, I just want to end with the main reason people have been led to believe that crunches are so bad for quote unquote injury-based diastasis. And you probably don't hear a lot of other people, by the way, refer to it as injury-based. I do all the time because I really want to continue to shift the narrative in the way that we talk about it. But the reason it's so bad, or quote unquote not diastasis safe, which is another term that I cannot stand, is because when you don't recruit the core and pelvic floor properly before crunching up, what you're doing is when you crunch up, I talked a minute ago about intra-abdominal pressure. Intra-abdominal pressure is just natural pressure in the abdomen increasing based on a demand being placed on our body. So when you crunch up, that pressure increases. And if you have not recruited the pelvic floor and core, when you crunch up, that pressure pushes out against that linea alba. So really quickly, I also want to make sure anyone listening, I'm not telling you to ever do crunches during pregnancy. I actually do believe you should not crunch during pregnancy because of the changes of the abdomen. But postpartum, it's not one of the first things ever I would have a woman do, but it is absolutely something that you can do even sometimes at 8 weeks postpartum. I've put a woman 3 weeks post C-section into a plank because her connection to her core and pelvic floor was impeccable. And there was no reason this woman could not do a 15-second plank to help rebuild her. Now, that's not for everyone. But again, my point in saying this is that our journeys are so individualized that when I created the methodology that is the Bloom method from a foundational space, it was, how can I give women certain tools that everyone can implement in their own individualized way, and then give them some guidance here and there so that they make the most of their pregnancy and postpartum journey, versus feeling like, again, their body is broken because their body didn't respond to, one size fits all way or approach that I'm telling you everyone adheres to. A woman who has exercised and been an athlete and a gymnast since she was 2, her body is going to respond differently to rehabbing and returning to exercise postpartum than someone who didn't start exercising until 6 months before she got pregnant, or maybe not even until she was pregnant. And we have to take that into consideration. And every individual deserves to have the space to honor that and not feel bad about it. Mm-hmm. So again, it's about those foundations. You implement the foundations, and ladies, you can move your body however you want. I always tell women, this diastasis safe, it's so cringeworthy, you guys. And again, it's not even the specialist's fault. I think I'm just pretty brazen. I don't adhere to, I had someone years ago tell me that I cannot tell women that they can prevent diastasis recti because there's never been a study that says women can prevent it. And my response to them was, I will never, ever hold women who choose to listen to me and my methodology. I will never put them in a box and hold them hostage because some huge conglomerate has not put money behind a study on prevention. We don't live in a world where people want to study prevention because prevention doesn't make people money. I've always said that. And now, fast forward, there are tons of people in my space that are saying you can prevent injury-based diastasis. But when I first started talking about this, I was beat left and right. They were like, you are an idiot. And I just stood my ground because I was seeing it in my clients. The more we as women know that we deserve to move our bodies the way we want to move them, the more we start to investigate, the more we start to ask questions and ultimately demand that people support us, that our OBGYNs, our midwives, our doulas, our pelvic floor physical therapists, our personal trainers, that they all support our desire, because motherhood does not break us. Pregnancy does not break us. Birth, sure as hell, does not break us. It may feel that way, but it is the most transformative thing that we could do as women. And I just think that we all deserve a space to celebrate that.
No, I love that. And celebrate that and trust ourselves to also understand, like, we know our bodies. These sort of movements can help us reconnect to our bodies, and then trust yourself in terms of own your power and go for the goals you have, and don't let other people tell you what you can do.
Absolutely. And listen to your body,
Yeah.
which is also a tricky one, because that's something that I hear a lot of women say that their fitness trainer said to them: just listen to your body. You'll know what to do. I'm not talking about that type of listen to your body. Ask questions, reach out to people, seek help when you need it, but listen to your body. If you pick up weights and your body says that doesn't feel good, or you go on a run and you've been a runner all your life and all of a sudden you're like, ouch, listen to your body. It doesn't mean you have to stop. It means that maybe there are some tools that you need to implement to keep you doing what you want to do without your body giving you these signals that say stop. It's all there for us. We have to ask more questions and demand the support. We really do. Women just don't, across the board in maternal care, we don't have the support we need. So,
well, we're lucky to have your voice out there and you supporting us and kind of leading the way here. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I did want to, before we close, you had mentioned, we talked about self-care at the beginning and some of the things that you had said, like the things to do to fill your cup. Would love to hear a couple of things you do, like daily, weekly, monthly, that help you feel good. Because I always like to hear be inspired by other people's self-care practices.
Yeah. So that's a pretty big can of worms there, because I'm a big self-care. It's a non-negotiable, especially in my role with Bloom. I'm sure you can relate with your role with Colugo and being a mom and being a partner and a friend. So my self-care is, and it can look different every day, but I work out 3 to 4 days a week, 30 minutes a day, period. It's a non-negotiable. Sometimes it's 15 minutes in the sauna. Sometimes it is body work. I'm a huge proponent of body work because it complements my postpartum healing, even though I am 3.5 years postpartum. Some days it's just going to the chiropractor, because again, that gives myself some self-love. And the funnest is sometimes it's like cocktails with my girlfriends, right? Like sometimes I'm just like, okay, if my husband can't take our kid, I will call the babysitter or call a girlfriend. I'm like, I'm bringing my kid over. I need to go have a cocktail with a girlfriend, or maybe even by myself. So I really just think it's whatever makes you happy. But, and I think I also just want to add that it depends on the season. Some seasons I need more like internal stuff. So I'll need more meditation and spiritual support. And some seasons it's more physical.
Love that. Whatever feels right. It's listen to your body in all the different ways and what feels good. And I just feel like I have been at points in my life and you hear, like, for example, I do not like massages. I do not like them. And for years, though people would like give me a massage as a present, or I would be in some context, I'd be like, okay. And I'd like go do the massage and feel like so tense. And then finally I got to the point where I was like, oh, like I don't have to do massages. Like, obviously this is not a huge problem to have. Just listen to yourself and be like, okay, I don't want the massage. Like, what feels good is I'm going to go get a drink with my friends. I've done a lot of weeding lately. I have a backyard for the first time in my life, and I actually feel really good. Like, weeding outside, that feels like restorative to me. So find your thing and don't think you have to, see what other people are doing and have to do the same.
I love that. Christy, you'll find this funny. You are the person that when I get deep tissue work, so when I talk about a massage, you guys, I don't like spa massages either. They drive me crazy. I actually want to be in pain. I'm pain so hard because it's like someone is foam rolling. So I basically want to hire someone to foam roll my body with their body, essentially. But every time I get body work, and we're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, looking for a home, I cannot find a body worker. But when we were back in Colorado, I got body work every week, once a week, 2 hours of body work every week. And every time I was on the table, I would go, how are there people in the world that don't like this? You are that person.
But maybe if I did that, maybe, you know what I like is a couple times, I think it's Thai massage where they like pull your body and stretch your body. That I like.
Okay.
I just don't like the Swedish massage or whatever. That is not my jam.
I don't like that either. And you own you. If you don't like deep work, that's fine. You actually free up hours for body workers to help people that
Yes, exactly. I know. I'm happy to I'm not yucking anyone else's yum. It's just not my thing.
Totally.
As we say in my house. Well, thank you so much. And before I let you go, Brooke, can you share where people can find you and the Bloom Method?
Absolutely. Yep. So we are at thebloom.method.com and then on Instagram at thebloom.method. We are also slowly but surely beefing up our YouTube channel for some extra like longer winded free education over there. And if you're interested in checking out the app, we do a free week trial. So 7 days free, just cancel before the 7 days. And for all of your podcast listeners, we are offering you guys 20% off for life, unless you cancel. If you cancel, you don't get the code again. But as long as you don't cancel, 20% off a monthly subscription or 20% off a yearly subscription. So you'll just use the code HICALUGO in all capital letters, 20. So HICALUGO 20 will get you access to those discounts.
Wow, that's awesome. I've been using the Bloom Method. I think the classes are great. As I've been talking about, it really meets you like wherever you are and you can like grow with it. It's really, I think doing some of the classes on repeat, I really like how it gets like easier for me. That's kind of where I'm at. Oh, wow, the first time I did this yoga class, it was really challenging. And now I like feel like I can move through it and feels really empowering. I love everything about it. So highly recommend. And thank you so much for that discount.
Of
That's
course.
awesome.
I love it. And I love that you said you do them repetitively. Group fitness has given like redoing the same class over and over again a bad name. You actually see better results the more you repeat.
That's my approach. So I'm glad that's
always. And if you love the content, we have almost 200 new classes coming to the app in the next few months. So lots of good stuff. We're always evolving for you ladies. Love it so much, Christy.
Thank you.
Today We Tried is brought to you by Colugo, a baby gear brand founded by parents for parents. I'm your host, Christy, and our producer is Mike Pilak. Stay tuned for more, and in the meantime, remember, you got this, and we've got you.